Ladies and gentlemen, Nevada Governor Steve Sisolak.
Good evening. In normal times, I would be addressing you tonight in this legislative chamber, assembled in front of our constitutional officers, elected officials, Supreme Court justices, and other guests. But as we all know too well, these are not normal times. Every Nevadan has been impacted by the COVID outbreak. Whether you've lost a job, had to learn from home, missed a graduation, grappled with keeping your small business open, or been unable to visit family for birthdays and holidays, or in a hospital room. This disease has touched us all. And the truth is, we still have a ways to go. But I know this: Nevadans are battle-born. We face our challenges head-on, and we will get through this difficult time together, because the state of our state is determined, resilient, and strong. 2 years ago, I came before all of you for my first State of the State address. I laid out a vision for what we could accomplish, and I'm proud of what we were able to achieve working with state lawmakers from both parties who are watching tonight. We gave raises to our teachers and provided record funding to our schools. We passed sweeping healthcare legislation to end surprise emergency room billing. We outlawed insurance companies from dropping people with pre-existing conditions. We implemented Nevada's first ever state climate strategy to expand the use of renewables and decrease our dependence on fossil fuels. Unemployment was low, business was buzzing, and consumer confidence was at a record high. And then on March 5th, 2020, Nevada got its first case of COVID-19. Shortly after, we had 5 cases, which quickly turned into 15, then 100. As of Friday, January 15th, Nevada had over 250,000 cases, and over 3,700 Nevadans have lost their lives. That's 3,700 families grappling with the loss of a loved one. In that time, we were faced with excruciating choices that continue today as we remained under a state of emergency. Throughout this crisis, we have worked hard to balance protecting the public health while doing everything we can to keep the economy afloat and our businesses open. But the fact remains that our state and our people have suffered in ways none of us could have imagined a year ago. And let me tell you, not a day goes by that I don't think about the many sacrifices so many of you are making. The challenges are unprecedented. We have so much to fix, but we are forging a new path forward. Tonight, you will hear about my priorities and my plans to achieve them, to win the battle against COVID-19 and vaccinate our people, to get all our students back in the classroom and provide teachers with the tools they need to do their job, to get our economy back on its feet and our people back to work, and to look ahead to what's next: infrastructure, green energy jobs, help for small businesses, and the other engines of growth that will provide new opportunities for our people. Through these historically challenging times, we've leaned on the most resilient of Nevadans, the heroes that helped us get through, the doctors, nurses, caregivers, faith leaders, public employees, educators, the Nevada National Guard, and the many others working on the front lines of this crisis over the last 10 months. That includes all of those caring for our veterans throughout Nevada who have served our country. They've been showing up, putting themselves at risk every day to make sure this state can move forward. There are people like Dr. Jacob Kieperman in Reno, who joins us here tonight.
Governor, I'm at Renown Medical Center in Reno. The team here is incredible. The nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists, pharmacists, housekeepers, and the countless others who all call Nevada home, who are working around the clock to fight COVID-19. This disease is relentless. But with the vaccine here, there is now hope. But we can't let our guard down. We must continue wearing masks, washing hands, and social distancing. And when your turn comes, everyone must get the vaccine. We can get through this together, but only if all of us do our part. So, Governor, we are here with you to continue fighting this fight.
It's because of people like Dr. Kieperman that I am optimistic about our future. And on behalf of the state of Nevada, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. Early in our response, with no playbook for this historic crisis, Nevada's public and private sectors mobilized to fight this deadly virus, from local government and state agencies to the Response, Relief, and Recovery Task Force, chaired by Jim Murren and made up of business leaders from across the state. Partners rolled up their sleeves and got to work. For example, the Nevada Department of Agriculture worked to make sure Nevadans didn't go hungry by providing over 16 million pounds of food across the state, serving approximately 250,000 individuals per month. Business and education leaders worked to bridge the digital divide for our students by creating Connecting Kids NV. In August, approximately 80% of Nevada's students didn't have the device or connectivity they needed to participate in distance learning. As of the start of this month, every student participating in online learning has at-home access to the internet and a computer to do their work. To keep people in their homes, millions of dollars were put into state and local rental assistance programs, and an eviction mediation program was created by Chief Justice Jim Hardesty and housing advocates. The Nevada National Guard, under the leadership of Major General Andra Berry, embarked on the largest and lengthiest state activation in Nevada history, stepping up as the heroes we all need in this moment of crisis. Labs across the state increased testing operations to record record levels, reporting over 2.3 million COVID-19 molecular tests thus far. In 2019, labs in Nevada reported a total of approximately 300,000 lab results for all diseases. The increase is staggering. But the truth still remains. While heroes like Dr. Mark Pandori, director of the Nevada State Public Health Lab located at the University of Nevada, Reno, have helped Nevada scale up our resources so we can process thousands of COVID tests a day. We, as Nevadans, are the only ones who control how many of those test results come back negative. While we are awaiting the full benefit of the vaccine, we have to be united in our statewide effort to slow and stop the spread of this virus. By wearing masks, avoiding gatherings, and protecting each other, we must remain vigilant. Our greatest challenge now is running the largest vaccination campaign in history. Despite lack of resources and coordination from the federal government, we have pushed forward, and to date, we have administered over 100,000 initial and secondary doses of the vaccine. And as we wait more vaccines for the state, we are ramping up our distribution efforts. Our immunization team, the Nevada National Guard, and Division of Emergency Management are working with our local partners to get more shots in the arms of Nevadans. We are expanding our vaccination workforce to include EMS providers, medical assistants, pharmacy techs, dentists, veterinarians, and more. A vaccination mega site at Cashman Field in Las Vegas, and we are coordinating with the private sector, including our resort properties, to have even more vaccination sites as our supply ramps up. We are working with private health providers like Renown in Washoe County to distribute vaccine to local residents who are not typically their patients. Again, let me assure all of you, every part of government is focused on vaccinating Nevadans. Anyone who tells you that COVID-19 is just a public health crisis is wrong. It's also an economic crisis and a fiscal crisis. It has impacted Nevadans' ability to feed themselves and their kids, to keep the lights on, to keep a roof over their heads, to earn a paycheck, and to keep the benefits that allow them access to health care. In our first months of the pandemic, more than 250,000 Nevadans were laid off. It was devastating. You know the truth. We're dependent on hospitality for a big part of our economy. And when travel stops, hotel rooms go empty, when showrooms close, and our convention business and tourism shuts down, it hits our state harder than any state in the nation. That makes me more determined than ever to get our world-leading hospitality industry open and our workers back on the job. But that's not enough. We need to expand our economy to other world-leading industries that can create new jobs and new opportunities for our people. And everyone needs to remember, it's not just big business that have been hit hard. Our small businesses have suffered, and they account for almost half of all the jobs in our state. I've been amazed at the grit and determination of so many small business employees and owners across Nevada as they have worked to get through this pandemic. People like Trina Giles, who owns Grits Cafe in Las Vegas.
Governor, welcome to Grits Cafe. What a crazy year 2020 was. We've been in business for over a decade now, and this is by far the most trying year in business. But we're getting through it, and we'll continue to strive and thrive to provide a great service for our food and a sense of normalcy for our customers. When the pandemic first hit, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't know what to do, but we found strength in our community through their support, as well as through the state and their assistance. And I'm so grateful for that.
Thank you, Trina. That's why in October, I joined State Treasurer Zach Conine and the Governor's Office of Economic Development to launch a small business assistance program that has been providing up to $10,000 in emergency grant funding to businesses like Trina's. This funding has helped small businesses keep their doors open and their employees paid throughout this difficult time. The response has been overwhelming. And so far, we've provided $50 million to small businesses across the state in Nevada. But we need to do more. That's why tonight I'm announcing an additional $50 million in my budget for this program, which is vital for small businesses. I'm asking the legislature as one of their first items of business to get this done. Additionally, our own Lieutenant Governor Kate Marshall will be working to create a small business advocacy center to be a one-stop location to help small businesses take advantage of the resources that exist and help them cut through the red tape. And as I said before, it's not enough to just aim for a full reopening of our current economy. We must look forward to the kind of economy that will let our state prosper in the future and create opportunity for all Nevadans. So let me share with you 5 initiatives that will help propel us forward. First, the new energy economy. Nevada is at the geographical center of energy transmission for the Western U.S. and has an opportunity to become to energy what Wall Street is to finance, or what Silicon Valley is to technology. Nevada is already a leader in renewable energy, generating billions of dollars in investment and employing tens of thousands of our people. Now we're perfectly poised to lead the world in energy storage. To reach these ends, I will work with Senator Chris Brooks and the legislature to pass a bold energy bill establishing our commitment to increase transmission, storage, and distribution of all forms of clean energy. More importantly, passing this bill will create good-paying construction jobs starting this year and helping in our fight against climate change. This bill will attract and develop a variety of new industries, including electric vehicle infrastructure, component manufacturing, and lithium mining. Lithium is a primary ingredient in electricity storage. And guess what? Nevada is home to the most accessible lithium reserves in North America. Second, I'm proposing the creation of innovation zones in Nevada. New companies creating groundbreaking technologies can come to Nevada to develop their industries. This will be done without tax abatements or public financing. Following the passage of my Innovation Zone legislation, Blockchains LLC has committed to make an unprecedented investment in our state to create a smart city in northern Nevada that would fully run on blockchain technology, making Nevada the epicenter of this emerging industry and creating the high-paying jobs and revenue that go with it. Let me also say that there are other exciting innovations taking place throughout the state. For example, UNLV physicists are leading the way in breakthrough superconductivity research. This technology allows for transmission of energy across long distances without energy loss and provides huge commercialization and job opportunities while helping solve our energy and climate challenges. The Department of Energy calls this breakthrough the holy grail of energy efficiency. Third, preparing our workforce for the new Nevada economy. Nevada has never experienced an economic recovery challenge as great as the one it faces now. Many of the jobs lost during the pandemic will not come back as businesses move towards automation. Job training and retraining our displaced workforce, as well as connecting Nevadan workers with remote working opportunities and emerging industries, will be key to the state's economic future. To achieve this goal, I will be creating the Nevada Job Force. I will be calling on some of Nevada's leading companies to fund, design, and implement training programs to prepare and qualify employees for these jobs. In addition, we need to recognize that our community colleges will play an even bigger role in workforce training. That's why I'll be asking the legislature to work with the Nevada system of higher education over the next 2 years to develop a framework transitioning Nevada's community colleges into a new independent authority that will focus on making Nevadans jobs ready. Community colleges, together with union apprenticeship programs, are critical elements in building Nevada's workforce and economic future. The COVID-19 pandemic has also changed the way we work, with remote work opportunities doubling by 2025. Nevada must be ready to take advantage of this trend, which is why I am establishing the new Remote Work Resource Center to connect Nevada workers with job opportunities across the globe. Fourth, building our infrastructure. Infrastructure creates real jobs for real people, and it will allow us to put hundreds of millions of dollars into our economy. Capital projects not only create high-paying construction and development jobs now, but those infrastructure improvements serve as the building blocks for our state's economic expansion for decades to come. The budget I unveiled yesterday includes $75 million for capital future improvement projects that will be used to launch the State Infrastructure Bank so we can leverage outside capital to fund important infrastructure projects like rural broadband, renewable energy, and road improvements. I'm also calling on state agencies and local governments to fast-track billions of dollars of infrastructure projects that haven't been started. The faster we move these projects from the list of things that we need to do to the list of the things that we are doing, the more Nevadans we can put to work. Fifth, making government work better. While public employees at every level of government worked around the clock to deal with the impact of the pandemic, we found that many of our government systems were out of date and overwhelmed. We need to fix them. This was painfully apparent with our unemployment insurance system. The division was hit by unprecedented volume, going from handling 20,000 claims a week to 370,000 claims a week, a 20-fold increase. That increase created delays that caused real hardship for families. And by August, there were 243,000 claims waiting to be verified. In order to prevent fraud that would have cost businesses and taxpayers tens of millions of dollars. Today, the original backlog has been reduced by 95%, and we now have more staff and improved systems to reduce the backlog completely. I want to thank Speaker Barbara Buckley, who chaired a rapid response strike force, and Alyssa Caffaretta, acting director of DETR, for their extraordinary service addressing this problem. However, our computer infrastructure is still outdated, and our systems can be improved. I'm recommending to the legislature that we work together to modernize and utilize private sector expertise to help Nevadans in need. More broadly, we need to recover the federal funding dollars that rightfully belong to Nevadans. My goal is to increase Nevada's share of federal grants by $100 million over the next 2 years. and by $500 million annually by 2026. And I'll be working with Assemblywoman Danielle Monroe-Moreno in our federal delegation to do just that. Better systems, modernization, private sector help, more federal dollars, that's a big part of the path forward. I want to thank State Treasurer Zach Conine and the Governor's Office of Economic Development and countless others who've helped develop this ambitious economic plan. Once implemented, it will create 30,000 jobs in the short term. Over the next decade, it will create 170,000 construction and development jobs and over 165,000 permanent jobs. I believe in this state and in our future. We will support our current industries like tourism while developing new industries, embracing innovation, workforce training, and investing in infrastructure to create a more robust and sustainable economy. And we will emerge stronger from this pandemic and lead the nation in jobs and opportunity. Now I'd like to talk to you about the state budget. I will be honest, putting together a budget for the next 2 years is hard enough in the good times and even more difficult during a state of emergency. Analysts and economists have different projections. Markets are volatile, business is uncertain, and so this budget reflects the emergency we are currently in. Just like your family, the state will take a responsible approach that reflects our reality today. The fact is, the state's financial situation has improved slightly in the past few months. The Economic Forum's December revenue projection for the next biennium is $8.5 billion, which is $418 million more than was projected in June of 2020. At the time, significant budget cuts were made during the special session. For perspective, prior to the pandemic, projections were indicating we'd have $9 billion to spend in this budget. We are in an improved yet still difficult position. The improvements in our fiscal situation are the result of decisions we've made over the last 10 months, where we worked hard to strike a balance between protecting public health and also protecting our fragile economy. Here are a few important items I want to tell you about the budget. We are anticipating general fund revenue of $4.1 billion in fiscal year 2022, nearly 9% less than the previous year. To avoid even deeper cuts, I'm proposing the use of nearly $100 million from the state's existing rainy day fund. If our current situation isn't considered a downpour, I can't imagine what would be. This budget reflects $187.2 million less than the previous budget, including the elimination of 152 vacant state positions over the next 2 years. The COVID-19 pandemic and the unknown economic impact required the state employees to do more with less, including required furloughs for the second half of fiscal year 2021. My recommended budget will not include a continuation of the furloughs into the next biennium. My budget also prioritizes the health and well-being of state employees and their health benefits in a time when health is wealth. While this budget makes tough reductions, it also contains smart investments in the essential priorities I outlined earlier, including restoring nearly $40 million in funding for preschool, $415 million dedicated for construction, maintenance, planning, and economic development projects that will create thousands of jobs. In order to stop talking about a doctor shortage and actually start doing something about it, I'm proposing a $25 million one-shot expenditure to help complete the UNLV Medical School building. A school could generate as many as 16,000 jobs over the next 10 years. Finally, in a time when 1 in 4 Nevadans are enrolled in Medicaid, access to quality health care is critically important to the public and economic health of our state. During the 31st special session, when things looked very bleak, the legislature was forced to make 6% cuts to Medicaid rates and reduce neonatal intensive care unit hospital service rates. But as a result of the efforts we've made, our revenue never went as low as our worst projections. And that is why my recommended budget calls on the legislature to restore the rate reductions to support Nevada families and providers. I look forward to working with the legislature to adjust this budget and make responsible revisions. I am hopeful that long overdue federal support to state and local governments will be delivered in the coming months. That support is critical, and it is outrageous that it hasn't arrived already. This will be a dynamic process, but an important one. As we work to recover educate our kids, promote justice and equality, and most importantly now, protect the health of our people. I look forward to signing legislation that creates jobs, saves the state money, and improves outcomes. That's what Nevadans expect us to focus on, and that's what they deserve. To all the parents, students, and educators out there, I know this has been a particularly tough time. None of us have ever faced anything like COVID-19. Just ask Juliana Ertube, Nevada's Teacher of the Year, who joins us tonight.
Thank you, Governor Sisolak. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. This year has been unlike any other for teachers, for students, and for families. Switching from face-to-face instruction to remote instruction and hybrid instruction has been a challenge for our state. It's really important to acknowledge everybody who works in a school, from the cafeteria workers to the custodians, our teacher assistants, our administration, our front office workers who know the families very, very well and have been amazingly supportive in just making sure our kids are connected. We are all so excited to get back to normal. I think about the day where my students are going to come in, I'm going to give them great big hugs, and that brings me a lot of joy, and it gives me resolve to get through these difficult times. We absolutely cannot wait for that day to come, and we just send a lot of gratitude to families, to parents, to kids for just doing their absolute best.
Thank you, Juliana. It is easy to forget what life was like before masks and social distancing. I want to pause for a moment and take this opportunity to give a big shout out to those who educate our young people. Nevada educators deserve credit for handling the adjustments needed to educate our kids while keeping everyone healthy and safe. When our schools shifted from in-person learning to virtual or online learning, our business people gained a new appreciation for the valuable role schools play in helping to keep our economy humming. And one other thing that became even more apparent: COVID-19 has exacerbated educational inequities, further expanding the gap between the haves and have-nots. On top of that, the lack of access to in-person learning has resulted in an increase in mental and behavioral health problems for our youth. It's unacceptable. It's harmful to our children, and we need to fix it. The disparities and inequities that became so obvious, not just in education, but in all facets of our society, are important work that this legislature and all Nevadans must take on. I want to take a moment to recognize Senator Joe Neal, who is a true champion for social justice, for equality and opportunity, and held us all to account in the work we do here and in our state. We've lost a powerful voice in Nevada. As many of you know, I have not been quiet about my urgent desire to see children return to in-person learning, because we will not recover as a state if we leave our children behind. I will do whatever it takes to get our students back in the classroom. That's why we've worked to supply PPE, ensure rapid testing was made available to all school districts, and now prioritize our educators for vaccines. With a new infusion of federal funds, I will continue to work with State Superintendent Joan Ebert and local leaders to finish the job and get all of our kids in every area of the state returned to in-person learning. That's the immediate priority, but we also need to look at solving the long-standing challenges facing our schools. 2 years ago in the 2019 legislative session, we began the process of modernizing Nevada's 53-year-old education funding formula. We took a significant step in the right direction with the creation of the pupil-centered funding plan. Education funding should be allocated to meet each student's learning needs. The dollars should follow the students rather than being connected to the districts or the schools. To accomplish this, we established the Commission on School Funding, including parents, educators, and financial experts. The Nevada Department of Education has been working with the Commission to promote equity, transparency, accountability, and flexibility in our school funding approach. In light of this emergency budget, I'm recommending a phased approach to implementing this plan that begins during the 2021-23 biennium, with only state revenues followed by phase 2 in the next biennium that will include both state and local revenues. This phased-in approach will allow school districts to manage resources to meet the needs of their communities. My budget also ensures marijuana tax dollars will continue to fund education to ensure districts can meet the needs of students during the pandemic and beyond. I would like to close tonight with two personal thoughts. First, I want to thank my family for their unending support. My mother, Mary, and my two daughters, Carly and Ashley. And of course, First Lady Kathy Sisolak. We recently celebrated our 2-year anniversary, and it allowed me to reflect on what a lucky man I am for having her by my side during one of the most difficult years in Nevada's history. Kathy, thank you. Second, I want to address the division and polarization that is gripping our country. It has to end. It's breaking down trust in our institutions and threatening our ability to solve problems we face. This is America. This is Nevada, and we need to pull together. Tonight, I've asked leaders from both parties to join me. We don't always agree, but when it comes to the big challenges that we have faced in our state, the economic recession, 1 October, and now the pandemic, we work together for a stronger Nevada.
We're going to have our differences and talk about them loudly. But what we must do is come together as Nevadans to defeat this pandemic and rebuild our economy.
Together, as one Nevada, we can beat the pandemic, get our kids back in school, rebuild our economy, and achieve true equal justice and opportunities.
COVID has challenged everyone we know and everything we are. All Nevada must unite and fight together as we always have.
Hello, Nevada. Nevadans always rally in difficult times, and now we must be stronger than we've ever been. Come on, Nevada. Let's show that the Nevada family is stronger than ever.
Thank you, my friends. Now I'm asking all Nevadans to join me in giving thanks to the over 200 Nevada National Guardsmen currently on duty in Washington, D.C. Nevada, we can do this. We are determined, we are resilient, and we are strong. Speaker Frierson, thank you for hosting us in the Nevada Assembly chambers today. Thank you all. God bless you, and let's get back to work.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to What You Need to Know Right Now. That's right. We're going to do a little live news update after we just heard from the governor himself. The state of the state, what is that essentially? Well, that is what is done at the beginning of the year, where the governor basically lays out his plan for the state, what he wants to do, what he's hoping the legislature is going to do, et cetera, et cetera. And basically what we heard from him is, well, he wants to make sure that we try to get unified. The end of that was very, very interesting, where he had some Republican leaders and Democrat leaders saying, hey, y'all, we can do this together. But he really did focus on what he wants to do in the legislature. Now, for those of you who are keeping score, the legislature will convene on February 1st. So that's about 2 weeks from now. And it will meet from February 1st until about June 3rd. And it will determine the budget and how Nevada will be run for the next 2 years. That's right. Our legislature meets every 2 years. So over the next 120 days, starting February 1st, they're going to tackle all of these wants and desires of the governors, plus balancing the budget, plus their own pet project bills. So what was on the governor's mind? Well, it certainly wasn't reopening the state. He didn't mention anything about reopening. He really focused on trying to build construction jobs, trying to create union apprenticeship, and trying to focus on schools. It was very interesting to me as he has shut down schools now for almost a year, and he kept kind of applauding himself and patting himself on the back, and that he was able to get devices for every student in Nevada who might need a computer to do online learning. Well, we all know that that is not the case. He was not the one. The state was not the one that was responsible for all of that, because many independent groups like Building a Better Nevada provided those devices because the government simply did not meet the need. He tried to tout that he's going to find a way to reopen schools because he's getting teachers vaccinated. And he did talk a great deal about the importance of vaccination, that's one of his top priorities, getting people vaccinated. So not a ton of information here, nothing really earth-shattering, nothing really groundbreaking. This was basically what he wanted to lay out for his plans. He did say he knows that hospitality is important in this state, but that he wishes to diversify. He really kind of led us to believe that he's going to diversify with construction jobs and building infrastructure. Sadly, though, that's what Nevada has always done. It's always been hospitality and it's always been construction. And that is not what we need going forward. We need to bring in new industry, new jobs, and support small business. Now, he did say he has a plan to support small business. He is going to put Lieutenant Governor Kate Marshall in charge of creating a small business advocacy center to help small businesses cut through red tape. And he's allocating $50 million to small business. However, I do want to remind everyone that it was in the 2019 session where Governor Sisolak was the head, and we had a totally Democrat-controlled Senate and Assembly, that they passed over 60 bills into law that were anti-business, particularly anti-small business. So you can take that for what it's worth. Another interesting comment that he made is that he wants to allocate $25 million to UNLV to help build the medical school there so that it can finally get done and so that we can quit talking about the doctor shortage and create a medical school so now we can have doctors here. He's missing one important factor. Yes, a medical school is key, but that will not address the doctor shortage in the short term. It will be years, no, take that back, decades before we see anything that will help the doctor shortage here. The UNLV Medical School will have to build a reputation for anyone to actually want to go there. And doctors who may go to the UNLV Medical School would still choose to go to Arizona or California, where there are more opportunities, better cities, better education, and more opportunity to get paid, well, a heck of a lot more. All right, let's go on with the rest of the news today on what you need to know right now. Of course, the inauguration is tomorrow, the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There is a huge military presence at this year's inauguration. As many of you have heard, there are more troops right now in Washington, D.C. for the inauguration than there are in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. This inauguration is not going to be like other ones because it's very much being encouraged to be a virtual inauguration. And all of the dinners and the balls have been canceled. So who's actually going to be there? Well, I think there's going to be about 2,000 people who are going to show up. Now, in contrast, when Joe Biden was vice president and inaugurated with President Obama, there were more than 500,000 people there. So literally no one's going to be at this sucker. Of the notables who will be there, the Obamas will be there, the Bushes will be there, the Clintons will be there. Some performances are going to be happening. Everyone's kind of talking about the celebrity star-studded affair. People like J-Lo, Lady Gaga, Garth Brooks. Also, in lieu of the balls, tomorrow night, starting at 8:30 Eastern, there's going to be a 90-minute event hosted by Tom Hanks. Who cares, right? No one cares. And you're going to have celebrities like Justin Timberlake, Demi Lovato, the Foo Fighters, and Bruce Springsteen sing. And gosh darn it, don't you know that's going to unify America? That was sarcasm. It's not. Also, nearly 1 year later, after the first confirmed case of COVID in the United States has reached a milestone of sorts, 400,000 deaths. I do want to remind everyone, well, 400,000 deaths is awful, and it is in those that have lost, we mourn those that you have lost. But I do want to remind everyone that in March of 2020, it was anticipated within 3 to 4 months after COVID really came on the scene, we would see 2 to 3 million deaths. That has not happened one iota. So we have actually defied every scientific and medical expert's prediction of what would happen with COVID-19. And I do think that needs to be addressed. When you see that they were telling us we were going to see 2 to 3 million Americans dead by the summer, and here we are a year later, and it's 400,000. Rather than looking at this with doom and gloom, we should be looking at how fantastic we have overcome this pandemic. Let's go to Nevada's numbers as well right now, because so many people are talking about the surge of cases in California, the surge of cases in Arizona, but it should be noted that quite honestly, here in Nevada, we're doing very well. We're on our 4th day in a row of declining positivity rates. This as nearly 83,000 doses of the vaccine have been given out here, and hospitals are not near capacity anymore. We're at about 80% bed capacity. What does that mean? Well, there's 6,600 60 beds in the state of Nevada in hospitals, and we're about 80% of capacity of that. And get this, even better news, of the COVID cases that are out there or suspected, because many of the cases in the hospital right now, they're not really sure it's COVID, there's only 1,716. So not a lot of COVID cases in our hospitals right now, despite what other media outlets may tell you. They're trying to turn a narrative, but when you look at the actual facts and the numbers, we're actually doing quite good with only 80% occupancy in our hospitals and only 1,716 suspected COVID cases. So there you go. It helps when you get your facts, when you base them on, you're able to give perspective. You might hear something like, oh my God, 80% of the hospital beds are filled. That's horrible. But when you realize that the majority of those are not with COVID cases, that's just the normal occupancy of a hospital, whether that be with people who are giving birth, people who are having elective surgeries, et cetera, et cetera. All right, and our final news story of the day, want to talk to you a little bit about what many in the media and many in politics have been saying right now. You may have heard that Katie Couric, a former anchor for ABC, CBS, and NBC, has recently said on a particular program that she wants to deprogram Trump supporters. This as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the congresswoman from New York, most know her as AOC, has said that she actually wants to deprogram Trump supporters. Very, very interesting that now the mantra from the liberal media and from politicians is that there is something wrong with conservatives and that we must unindoctrinate them, that we must cure them, that we must reprogram them. And I want you to think for a moment about what that means. They're saying that of the 74 million Americans who voted for Donald Trump and did not vote for Joe Biden, there is something wrong with them and that they need to be fixed or they need to be repaired. And if you think that is okay for a member of Congress and a member of the media to say such things, I really want to ask you this question. Why do you think that's okay? Because it absolutely is not. How appalled would you be if Katie Couric or AOC went on TV and said something as ridiculous as we should reprogram homosexuals? We should deprogram them. We should try to change them. It is absolutely ridiculous to say such things. And there is such a hypocrisy and narrative in media right now that anyone who is on the right is bad and anyone who on the left is good. I'll give you a great example of this. The congresswoman in New York, Elise Stefanik, is 36 years old. And recently, an Albany newspaper wrote a piece on how she is childless and how that is somewhat shameful that this poor woman has not had a child. We don't know if Elise Stefanik can have children. We don't know if she wants to have children, but they made a comment about her being childless as if that is an issue. Yet they don't say anything about AOC, who is also a female congresswoman from New York, who is 31 years of age, is not married, and also does not have children. They don't make such disparaging remarks toward her. Now, do they? This is the problem with media today. You are constantly getting a narrative, and the left wants to tell you that they are right and the right is wrong. And the right, unfortunately, can't ever get its act together. They don't have one common message. They're all over the place, and there are so many differing messages that you never really hear anything from the right. That's the problem, my friends. We need to start getting back to balance where you just get the facts. No one needs to be addressing whether a female congresswoman has children or not. That is absolutely inappropriate. And no one should be insulting voters. There is no need to insult any person, regardless of their political affiliation, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexual orientation. We must stand up and say this type of behavior is repugnant, because if we don't, we are just going to continue to see it. I'm not even sure saying it's repugnant would get it to stop, but we do have to become painfully aware of when you are being given narrative and when you are being given fact. And the fact that the media has turned on its side and has said, I am so in bed with the Democrats that that's all I'm going to give you is narrative, makes it very hard to find the truth, which is why we will do these reports nightly, Monday through Thursday at 6:30 p.m. So if you're looking for a new way to get your news, you just found it. And on that note, we are done for the day here. We will be back with you tomorrow night at 6:30, same time, same place for your news of the day, what you need to know right now. And remember, every Monday and Friday, you can tune in to the Michelle Mortensen Show right here at noon for your daily dose of news, politics, and pop culture. Thanks so much for tuning in here today. I will see you back here tomorrow.